Sure. And another of the same, similar.
Something thinner than that.
Lost my hat. So, one more mortar.
So,
Nick.
what, standing in front of the time. Why does the outer wall have to be flat? You ready?
ter pagał się na fizjoterapię, a muszę mieć drzwi do sali.
Nope. Let's see how this son of a bitch goes. Oh!
pierdolę.
No, to cię łęgałeś.